Man, we get a view of almost everywhere in the good old United States of America, both continental and beyond. Had the guy that runs the Hawaii Trucking Association on a couple of weeks ago as well. We're going back to a place that a lot of people, though, kind of consider one of the central hubs of trucking in this good old United States of America. And I'll let Dave do the honor of introducing our next guest.
Our next guest is Rebecca Oyler, and Rebecca heads up the Pennsylvania Motor Truck Association. And that group goes back to, actually, and it's one of the rare trucking organizations that actually wasn't started in the Depression. They beat the Depression by a couple of years. They go back to 1928. And Rebecca comes from a background that really just sets her up beautifully for what she does now, I think, in terms of the legislative process and all of the other ins and outs that she deals with in the trucking sphere in Pennsylvania. But also, we're going to zero in on something that, for the first time in a while, we're going to get some good news about what was considered to be the worst state for truck parking on the planet. And now you guys are changing that. And Rebecca, you're a big part of that, and the organization is too. Good morning.
Good morning, Dave. It's great to be with you.
Oh, it's absolutely wonderful to have you with us. So we're going to jump right into the big news here because you got some big numbers in terms of what is happening. So I'm going to just kind of run this by fairly quickly, and then we'll have you kind of pull these numbers apart. 1,202 truck parking spaces in 133 locations by the end of 2026. And then on the Turnpike, they're looking for 600 more in addition to that. Those are some big numbers, and it seems like, whoa, all of a sudden, all at once. But I'm sure it took a long time to get there, right?
Yeah, that's right. We're pretty excited about it because this has been, like you said, a long time to try to get to this point. But it really has been decades that Pennsylvania has, since Pennsylvania's really taken a sort of coordinated statewide step to address the truck parking shortage. And the plan that they announced last week really gives drivers more safe places to rest, supports the backbone of our economy, keeps our goods moving. We're really excited about it. But we also see it as a first step. So we think there's a lot more that needs to be done, but this is really exciting because it is a coordinated first step. And we think it's an important one.
Hi, Rebecca. Jimmy Mack here. I want you to kind of go back for a second, though, because Dave gave away the headline, but I want to kind of go back and kind of dive into what's before that. You guys were in trouble. I mean, we just literally this morning had one of our listeners write in and say, "Man, Pittsburgh's got some of the worst parking I have ever seen in my life." So, can you kind of set up where you guys were and what it means, those numbers that Dave just unpacked? Tell us what was going on beforehand.
Sure. So about 2.5, 3 years ago, we really started focusing on this issue when the PMTA, proposed a statewide study be done. And as everyone knows, and actually when we proposed the study, I remember getting some feedback from members saying, "Oh, we've studied this issue to death. Everyone knows there's a truck parking problem. It's just going to be another study. Nothing's going to happen." So we got some feedback on that, but we pursued it anyway. And long story short, they completed a statewide truck parking study, the Transportation Advisory Committee at the state level back in 2023. And that study found that at peak hours, the state was running at about 103% capacity for our truck parking spaces in the state, which is not a surprise to any of us who work in the industry. We knew that was the problem. And the ATRI study that came out recently found that Pennsylvania had 10.9 parking spaces per 100 highway miles, whereas the national average is 16. So clearly we have an issue. We are the Keystone State. Like you said in the beginning, we are a central hub for trucking. We're a heavy state. We are the key to the Northeast, linking it to the rest of the country. And we know that drivers rated Pennsylvania as one of the top 5 states where they have trouble finding parking. So we know it is a dire situation here. So that study that was released in 2023 had a lot of recommendations in it. most of which we're very supportive of, well, all of which we support. But one of those recommendations was for the state to actually look at their current rights of way and repurpose state-owned property for the purpose of truck parking. So that is exactly what we're seeing out of this recent announcement from PennDOT and the Turnpike Commission. They have done a holistic review of all state rights of way and all state properties throughout all of the state districts. And these are the spaces that they were able to find that they believe they could develop for truck parking. So this is a direct result of that study that was done 2 years ago.
Quick follow-up, and then I'm going to turn this over to Dave. One of the things we found out from Ohio was they had plenty of parking spaces, and they all were in the wrong places. And so that's always a big concern. I mean, it's like, there's enough parking spaces all over the country to put every truck in. That's not the issue. The issue is, do we have the parking spaces in the right place? Does this plan address that directly, meaning that have the studies shown that there are spaces where the spaces are needed, and that's what you guys are targeting?
That's a great question, and I don't believe this does address that directly, because what this plan does is it builds truck parking spaces where the state system has capacity. That may or may not correlate with where the truck parking need is, unfortunately. So we'll take what we can get, obviously, but then we get into sort of the next steps, right? So that tax study that was released in 2023 actually did prioritize the corridors. So we know where the highest truck parking need is. It prioritized tier 1 and tier 2 corridors throughout the state. And anyone who's driven through Pennsylvania can probably guess where those tier 1 corridors are. So the next step is to actually focus attention and resources on those tier 1 corridors where we know there's a problem. So that, I think, is where we need to go from here. We know where the problems are, and we need to get a collaborative plan together to focus on that next.
Sometimes you can, this is Dave again, Rebecca, sometimes you can solve one problem by creating another. And I'm thinking, I've always said, well, when it comes to truck parking, you really need to get the most expensive real estate in the country right off an interstate exit, So the state already owns a lot of land, but not necessarily in the right place, but it's there and it's free in a sense, if you know what I'm saying. So let's go there instead. So we solve the economic problem in a sense, but we never really solve the parking problem. Is that too harsh?
Yeah, you're right. And that is exactly what the study found 2 years ago, is that one of the barriers to actually building capacity where it needs to be is the cost of land. Mm-hmm. Because outside of Philadelphia, outside Pittsburgh, like your listener called in, we know that land is much more expensive and the return on investment is much more difficult. So there are specific recommendations in the plan. Like I said, these are next steps that we believe will help moving forward. One of those, actually, we have a bill here in Pennsylvania. It's House Bill 709, which we're trying to get some movement on. It would actually provide a tax credit for private businesses that would be willing to provide public truck parking spaces. So it's a $5,000 tax credit for every public truck parking space that a private business would be willing to provide. And that would only be applicable to tier 1 corridors. So the idea there would be trying to get the private sector to step up and provide some capacity in the areas that are most most in need of truck parking. So it's an all hands on deck. Give it all we can to get these issues solved, because it absolutely is a dire situation. And I see this as sort of the state taking a leadership, most recent announcement, the state is taking a leadership role, and it's the first step toward putting a lot of these recommendations into action. So I'm hoping we're only going to move forward from here.
So that's House Bill 709, if I'm not mistaken. Representative Carrie Benninghoff introduced. What do you think? Chances of passing? You think it looks like a pretty doable thing, I would imagine.
I think so. I think it has bipartisan support, and I think even PennDOT is supportive of it. So I'm really hopeful about it. We have a little bit of a situation going on here in Pennsylvania. We still don't have a budget passed, so hopefully once we get through that, we can see some bills start to move.
Yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Um, One of the things too that gets mentioned pretty prominently in the report that you guys put out about the headline is Pennsylvania launches first ever statewide truck parking expansion, and then we get into the open road tolling that went into effect, I think, on the first of this year, and then it's going to expand later on, I think. Stop me when I get
Yeah,
off.
it's a
Off.
process.
Yeah. Okay. How does that? In terms of parking and in terms of paying for a parking spot, how does open road tolling play into that economically, or even does it?
Well, one way I can tell you that there is potentially a linkage is they're going to be getting rid of the toll booths moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
So that will create some space where there may be an opportunity to build some truck parking spaces right off the turnpike in the future. So that when we talk about the 600 additional spaces that the turnpike is reviewing,
Uh-huh.
that may be an opportunity for those additional spaces. So they're going to be demolishing those toll plazas. So that is one opportunity for sure that I know that they're looking at.
A follow up on both things you and Dave just talked about as well is that parking spaces are terrific and we're all in favor of them, and sometimes you take what you can get. In regards to making sure these spaces are safe, what is the state's commitment to making sure they're, as I've always said, a place to go to the bathroom and that they're well lit? What's the future look like for that?
That's a great question too. So I just had a conversation with the Secretary of Transportation about that after this announcement. So the priority for the near term is the way stations, the spaces that they're going to be adding at the way stations. So the idea there is they're going to set aside about two spaces for the state police's use at the way stations, but the rest of those facilities are going to be set aside for truck parking, and that will be done by the end of 2025 at all the way stations is the anticipated time frame there. And they are looking at installing porta johns at those way stations. So I know that's not the perfect solution, but at least it's something at the way stations. Going forward from there, the rest of the spaces that we're talking about a lot of them are sort of in the other category on the list of PennDOT facilities. So some of these are park and ride lots and other sort of parking lots that are along the roadways. A lot of those are going to need some improvement, whether paving or just basic improvement. And so the plan is by the end of 2026 to get a lot of those other parking facilities up and together, and the new signage. We have new truck parking signage that will be up. So my hope is that they will be able to access some funding to make all of those facilities safe, install some lighting and restrooms and paving where it needs to be. In fact, that's one of our recommendations moving forward is to try to access. As you know, there's federal funding available for that. So we really want to make sure that these spaces are safe and the best they can be.
PMTA.org. You can also find them on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. We're talking with Rebecca Oyler this morning. Dave, take it away.
Well, thank you very much. We just got a couple of minutes here, Rebecca, but I wanted to ask you one quick thing. On the 511pa.com, is the public truck parking feature on there now, or is it coming?
Yes, it is on there now.
Okay.
They released that a week or two ago.
Okay.
You can check it out.
Gotcha. Okay. And I want to ask you a question about studies. This may sound like a silly question, but I don't know if it is or not. I've made sort of a joke through the decades now, it seems, Rebecca, that, we've got enough truck parking studies to pave lots with the studies, Okay.
Exactly.
We all know that. You kind of alluded to that sort of thing earlier. My question is, should there be a study as to whether we need any more studies? You know what I mean? In other words, do we have enough studies to just quit wasting time and money on that? And, and then one study leads to another, and then the next thing you know, we don't even know where we are anymore. How is this? Are we in silly season with studies on parking by now? I don't.
I,
You don't
I
have
think
to
that's a
agree.
great point. No, I think that's a great point. I would prefer to spend the money that we're spending on these studies to actually build capacity
There you
for
go.
parking. But on the other hand, I get that they do want to try to study the impact of some of these changes that they're making. And to the point we were talking about earlier, are we building capacity in the areas where it's most needed? And everything's changing all the time. Of course, we have new warehousing and distribution facilities popping up constantly, and of course that changes the pattern
Mm.
of trucking and
The
distribution.
landscape is
So
changing
sure,
essentially. Yeah.
yeah. So I do think that there is a valid reason we do need to at least periodically keep up with the studies. I think there must be a way to sort of make it routine so that it's not just a brand new study every time.
Yeah.
Maybe we can sort of
Maybe
make it updates to
do
studies.
something new and then study to see if that worked and then move on from there, right?
Yeah, a post-mortem study might
Yeah,
actually be good. Build something and then let's study what we've built and see if it works.
right.
PMTA.org. President and CEO of the Pennsylvania Motor Truck Association, Rebecca Oyler, has joined us this morning. We are thrilled to have you. You are welcome back anytime. And by the way, I hope you're buckling up for the winter that is to come.
Yes, we're doing our best. Thank you very much. It's great to be with you guys.